Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the show. It's another dark, cold, and bleak winter Monday, but it's not all that bad today. Why is that, Willie?
Well, because it was the inauguration of 45th and now 47th President Donald John Trump.
Well, I would say 46, but I don't want to go to prison, so I think I'm going to keep my mouth
I think we
shut.
have less of a fear of that now than we
Maybe
did
so.
yesterday.
That's true. That's true. Man, this stuff's been pretty wild, I would say. Last night I was nowhere in civilization, and I'm only getting small reports from, a handheld phone about what's going on. And last thing I heard before Biden was left office was he's pardoned Anthony Fauci, his whole family, and whoever was involved in the COVID stuff. And now, it's too late to go after those people.
And he also pardoned the Jan 6th Commission.
That's who it was. That's who I was forgetting. And, you know, it's kind of like they always talk about that. I don't know how true this is exactly, but they always say that O.J. Simpson, after his trial, wrote a book pretty much saying, well, if I did kill her, here's how I would do it. And it's pretty much them saying, we didn't do anything illegal, but if we did, which we did, they're now pardoned for it.
I mean, there was one woman, I forget who specifically she was, but she was saying, how come my family didn't get a pardon? She was involved with the Bidens in some way, and she seemed very, very affronted by the fact she did not receive one.
That was, if I'm correct, that was woman's name was Rachel something, and she was related to a guy that was trying to get Trump in like the Russia collusion stuff, and the guy was like Ukrainian.
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I don't know what to what extent that was or what the guy's name was really. I've just been kind of hearing the details of it, but she wasn't given a pardon. So I mean, the devil always has to sacrifice someone.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really make sense as to why he wouldn't, but maybe there's fears that it could lead to some that the connection there, if it's pardoned, they don't have any right to Fifth Amendment right. So maybe there's a fear with that one, considering it goes to Ukraine. No clue.
Could be. It also could have been just there are bigger fish to fry for the Biden administration,
Could be,
and
and
they didn't really want to worry about that.
yeah.
Anyway, though, let's talk about some stuff that looks like that's up on Trump's list. What's he done so far?
Well, the biggest thing, in my opinion, and it's going to be challenged in the court, and he acknowledged that, but he signed an executive order redefining the birthright citizenship and how it's interpreted, so that you can't just come here, have a baby, and that baby is automatically given citizenship. Your parents have to be American citizens, from what I understand.
Well, that's good and common sense, and a stable society that wouldn't be the law, that'd be the norm. It's kind of sad that we have to make things that are common sense into law, but that's the times we're in, and fortunately, it's a law, I guess now. Um,
Unless the courts overturn it, which I don't know why or if they will.
I could see them overturning it because I believe there was a law in the early government of the country. I think it was the Adams administration passed I think it was the Alien and Sedition Act, where they pretty much made immigration illegal, and they also made any kind of criticizing of the government illegal. And I think it went on for about 2 years, maybe, and it was pretty much shut down by like the Jefferson administration.
Yeah, this would stem from the 14th Amendment, which came as one of the Reconstruction Acts. I don't know how much legal precedent they would have to look at it. It used to be uh, I believe the legal understanding of the 14th Amendment was that you had to be uh, the child of U.S. citizens for it to apply. So, seeing as the court did that with Roe, they may be inclined to do it with this. It depends. You have to see how, you know,
Well,
Amy Coney Barrett and the others more middle ground justices go.
the only justice on that court that's really worth the dang is Clarence Thomas.
Alito's pretty good.
Yeah, he's good, but I mean Clarence Thomas is the dude that when the abortion stuff happened made some insinuations they were going to go after something else that I'm not going to name, and he just kind of like laughed about it and said like, "Yeah, that sounds good."
Yeah, I mean, he is the best, bar none.
Yes, I would definitely say so myself. Um, Now, do you think all the stuff about Greenland and Panama? Do you think that was just like a little bit of a pregame for the election, or not the election? Do you think that was post-election, pre-gaming for the inauguration, or do you think this is going to be something that we're going to see develop in the next few days of President Trump trying to get access to those regions?
So it could be on one hand, but a lot more, uh, I would say, unfun thinkers want to say they may just be hard bargaining tools. Greenland, I think, could be a real possibility because it's the native population isn't Danish; they're mostly Inuit, from what I understand,
Yes, that is correct.
and they're not too happy with the Danes, so they may vote to break with Denmark.
I would think Greenland would go to Canada before it would go to America, just
But what's
based on
Canada going to do about it at the moment? They're in a state of political turmoil. Uh, there's a lot less money that you're going to get from them, honestly.
true, true. But I don't see Greenland being too much of a open, open arms to America. But I don't know. I think the Greenland stuff is more of a there's this idea that I've seen played around at least a little bit when I was younger about that the next international conflict zone is going to be the Arctic. I don't know how true that is, but it was something about it's going to have to do with shipping lanes, as global warming, yada yada yada. Basically expands ocean highways, ocean traffic, and that these are going to be points of contention by world powers, whether they be the U.S., Russia, or China. And we know for a fact, America and Russia have access to Arctic waters, and so it looks like those would be the two candidates who would be trying to fight and have hegemony over the polar sphere.
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, there is a lot of oil up that way that we just haven't been able to tap, and I'm sure there's other natural resources we just haven't been able to tap because of the ice. And now that that's over time melted, I think that there is possibility that we could have some resources that we can extract from there.
Maybe I've heard that a lot of the Greenland stuff is more to do with tourism, but I don't know. When I think of
It's a military asset too. If you're all worried about the Russia stuff because of the big GIU gap, that means their northern fleet can't get out to the Atlantic.
well, I
But
mean, in the
that's
cold,
not the biggest worry
well, I mean,
now.
in the Cold War, didn't we have bombers in Greenland?
Yeah, we had bombers in Greenland. We had fighters in Iceland.
I know that about Iceland because I have a personal connection who one of their someone they know was in the military, and they were at Keflavik Air Force Base,
Yes,
and they were there to basically monitor like Russian aircraft.
pretty much. Yeah.
And like I think I've said this before, like I've been to Iceland. I think I've even been to Keflavik not like the Air Force Base, but I believe the airport is Keflavik International Airport,
Yeah.
and I've been there. and it's a cool place, dope. You should go there. But yeah, I would say it's a strategic place. If you're trying to expand into Europe, you want a strong, powerful country, and you have the resources. It makes sense. So I think it makes sense to have whatever assets you have in Iceland, have them in Greenland, if possible. I mean, I'm not saying now we have all this stuff in Iceland, but World War II we did, and if we can buy Greenland, it would be very good for probably more or
It
less
is
stacking up our
also,
muscle in Europe.
when you think about it, another frontier that like a lot of people could probably get in on.
Uh,
To some extent, it's not like a very. It's like probably 10% of the country usable, but I mean, think about it like resource exploration.
well,
Uh,
I messed up on something earlier when I like just then said that it was like Europe. I mean, it's not Europe. It's in the North American continental shelf, but it's close to Iceland, and it's more like it's a Arctic climate. I don't know. When I think of Greenland, and the fact Denmark owns it, it seems more like Europe to me than America. But I mean, I don't think you'll have people moving there, but you'll definitely have businesses trying to exploit resources there. The one
but
I
that
think
also brings people with it, though.
this tree does bring people, but it's not like we're not talking the same amount of people as like a Kansas wheat farm in 1850.
Well, when you're running low on frontier, you got to take what you can get.
Yeah. The now changing our focus from a more polar to a more tropical climate. Do you think the Panama Canal stuff will go through? Do you think we'll be able to get that back?
I hope we can, but this one also seems like a big. He may just be using this to get better deals on getting military and commercial shipping through.
Maybe so. It wouldn't be though. It used to be ours, and we invaded Panama in '89. I wouldn't be surprised if something more serious is afoot with this,
I
and that
wouldn't
he
be either.
and that he seriously wants the canal. And I believe it was tonight. At some point, Trump has already designated drug cartels as terror organizations,
Yes, which allows the U.S. military to use lethal force against them.
and I do and don't know if I know there's drug cartels in Colombia, all over Central and South America. I imagine there's some kind of cartel stuff in Panama. I wouldn't be surprised if the government there is ran by cartels. Um, I don't want to call and say, "Oh, we're going to invade and take back the canal," but I wouldn't be surprised if that something like that did happen.
I wouldn't either. I mean, when you think about it, it's a choke point where you can stem the flow of migrant caravans from South America too.
Yes, and and I believe it was the Carter administration recently that not recently,
They started the
but
process of
they
us
started the
selling it.
process of getting rid of it, and I think it'd only be fitting that once he died, we get it back. And I'm fine with using military force to get it back. We built the thing. We should own it.
Yeah,
I don't think the Panamanians are really, that mad at us, owning it. And I'm not really aware of Panama even being a really being a real country till after that. Probably no thanks to the canal creating, a lot of business and you know side ventures and side businesses to create a state there. But we built it, we should own it.
I agree. What's more to say? It was the
Yeah.
only thing John Wayne was wrong on.
John Wayne didn't support the canal being
John
there.
Wayne, John Wayne was fine with giving it back because John Wayne had a couple of Panamanian wives.
Well, That's uh that's what women will do to you.
It is one of the tricks there.
Yep.
He said it was the only time he ever got death threats.
Well, I imagine he didn't get a lot of those.
I imagine not, because who's gonna threaten the life of John Wayne?
The guy that the Russians wanted to kill, the communists. Let's see. So what? So what else do you predict of this administration in its first 100 days? I would say.
Well, I think they're gonna. He's already repealed one of the H-1B uh, orders that Biden gave out, which I haven't looked into the specifics of, but that bodes very well. I mean, Vivek being gone, it shows that maybe he's siding against that kind of tech bro interest on that regard, at least, which would be a great thing, of course. Um, but and he's also shown that he's going after illegals pretty hard at this point, shutting down the CBP1 app that was essentially a we're going to give the legal smartphones and then help them uh, get their citizenship. So that's been shut down already.
Yeah, I saw a video on Twitter of a woman that was trying to get that, like, I guess sometime today or yesterday or something, just got to the border and she had the app on her phone and she was in tears crying about how it wouldn't work. It's just like, come on now. Like, you know the
Listen,
credits for the change.
aside from the obvious things wrong with this, we don't need procrastinators in this country.
We don't. We don't.
And you waited until the guy who said he was going to do this got into the office to get here. Like, come on.
Yeah, and plus the fact that you probably can't speak the lingua franca, also known as English in this country. That's really big points. Really really good, really good. Lo siento, señorita. Lo siento. Um. Anyway, where was I going with that? I don't know. I'm a little distrustful of the Vivek stuff because, well, number one, a lot of people never liked Vivek from the beginning. Um, I uh, I think in the grand grand political scheme, sometimes you have to sacrifice, sometimes you have to punish people, and I think Vivek might have been one of those people. Um, you know, definitely not on top of the tree. Definitely knew how to be. Maybe took the fall for Elon and Trump on that. I could see
Maybe.
that.
I mean, it's going to depend on what they're going to do, but also now that there's public pushback, I mean, they are politicians.
That's what I think. I think it's some kind of ploy with that. We'll just have to see. I mean, Trump himself admitted that he uses the H-1B visa people for his offices in places like that. So I think it's likely that he will support it. It's just going to be more of a quiet kind of underground thing while they try to make it appear that they're anti-immigration by fighting immigration from the southern border.
Maybe. I hope not, but it's all we got.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to play games of what's worse, illegal immigration from the Del Sur, or legal immigration from the subcontinent. But you know, I I think that they're going to support this legal immigration because number one, most of these people, their idea of America is different than our idea of America. Number two, they've admitted that they use these people for labor, and at the end of the day, the Republican Party still is it's still that almost Civil War esque party of big business, and they're going to do whatever it takes to keep that going. And you know they might be anti illegal immigration because these people are coming to these cities voting Democrat, and now that's probably true with a lot of these H-1B people. But at the same time, from my understanding, is a lot of people from the subcontinent either come to America and they're really apolitical, or they vote whatever the majority of their area is. So, if they're in like a Republican area, they're going to vote Republican. And I mean, I've seen this with people of that demographic. I've never met any that really vote liberal or vote Democrat or that are openly Democrat. They vote red, a lot of them, because it's, they like business. They like Trump. He's the man of business. So I think there's some of that in it, that it's all about creating these networks of support, these bases of support. And I think a lot of these people like Musk and Trump think that, well, if we can get these people over here, get them jobs, that's just another, base of support. It doesn't, obviously, demographics don't matter to these people except, the color demographic of, are you red or blue?
Pretty much. I mean, when you get down to it, though, the way they've kind of backtracked on it has to at least give you a little bit of hope and also show that there is at least some internal pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is internal pressure. I mean, when you have, tons of conservative people coming out and saying, I mean, you have Nikki Haley literally coming out, and she's Indian. Let's not forget that. Nimrata's coming out and speaking against H-1B visa people.
Or she is a
Um,
Sikh.
it's it's really interesting that mainstream people are against this, and I think most average Americans are against it. Really, at the end of the day, I don't know what it is. I mean, I've never really understood it, but most people in America do not like people of that continent. Um, I'm gonna feign ignorance and say I don't know why. Um, but at least in my early formative years, I would wonder that, and I could never find an answer really for why they didn't like them. I think I've discovered those reasons as of now, but yeah, I really don't want to go into that. But I guess it's just like every group that comes here, everybody pretty much gets along and hating them for about the first 20 years, and then they find the next group to go pick on. It's like the new kid at school, the newest person in the group, whatever. They're the weak link. They're the one that's going to get made fun of. They pull all the weight. They get hazed. You get the point. It's they're the newer group. It's their turn to get it. And then when I don't know, like I don't know, like the people from Sudan come here, you know, they'll be the next group. I don't know. It's just an example. I mean, I don't. You get it. I'm not being literal in
I
that
know what you mean,
that
man.
there's gonna be this massive migration from Sudan, but that's uh that's one group that out of the multicultural melting pot that America is. It's one group that I don't think you're gonna find too many of them here, especially with a war going on in their well. They seem like they want to stay and fight their war. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have Sudanese dudes flying fighter jets around Khartoum, you know that it's serious. Let's see. Let's see.
He did pardon, I believe 115 or 116 uh,
J6
and six
prisoners.
prisoners. Yeah.
Good, good. That whole thing was a sham. They
A
were let in.
complete, uh, just subversion of the right to a speedy trial in a lot of the cases, like cruel and unusual punishment in others. Uh, Stoked on by federal agents, as we know now. They just said
Yes, yes, and a waste of government resources when the real people, the real criminals that year were allowed to burn businesses, attack people in the streets.
caused the most property damage of any riots in the nation's history.
Yes, that those people are out and about. Nothing, no punishment, no nothing. Now I find it interesting. Um, Israel and Hamas have seemed to have come to some kind of ceasefire the day before the day before the inauguration. Do you think that's going to last?
Um, who knows? You can never tell over there. I mean, we saw with the Assad stuff that region is just so unpredictable at this point.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that Israel's a really good Israel's one of their best qualities is that they're able to propagandize that they're on the defensive while at the same time going on multiple offensives. They're very good at it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they break the ceasefire and continue operations in Gaza, ramp up operations in Lebanon because we don't negotiate with terrorists. I don't even know if I could say that word on here, but it's I'm pretty sure it's from Counter Strike. So hey, I can say it. Um, yes, obviously we're talking about Counter Strike here. You know,
Obviously.
Team IDF is trying to beat Team Hamas in the playoffs for the Counter Strike Championship. But I don't know. There's no telling what I think. Really, the ceasefire, what it means is that the IDF is not they're not able to continue on this war um,
At the
with
moment, no.
at the moment. Whether that means that they just don't have the political capital to finish their ends, which is a complete takeover of Gaza, or if it's that they're actually losing on the ground, which I suspect it's that second option that they're maybe not losing is the right word, but they're not getting a good enough return on it.
On a, yeah.
I mean, you're trying to police
A
a
lot of it, I think, is just the fact that Netanyahu cannot guarantee his own ability to,
yeah,
continue going around the world in a diplomatic fashion.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, it seems like that there's something going on with that, and that more or less the Israelis just want their hostages back, and they kind of want to return Gaza to what it's always been. And I think people forget this, but I believe that the IDF has kind of always been in Gaza doing these military operations. This isn't like a new thing. And it really what this quote unquote war was is it was more like ramped up operations against Hamas.
Yeah, it's pretty constant state of military affairs over there. I mean, they have to have people on the inside.
Yeah, and
I
from
mean,
my
they
understanding,
have special forces teams just like we do.
from my understanding, this is more like a war, almost like Mexico versus the cartels, than it is like a Russia Ukraine situation.
The borders are so ill defined, especially with the ethnic makeup of both areas.
Yeah,
I mean, Israel has a large Arab population.
yes, and it's just I think that will be a conflict that will go on for a long time, and it will probably only end if Israel got drawn to a bigger war.
And it depends on how that bigger war would go.
Yes, I mean, I think if they were to fight Iran, they would, you know, they would full stop, not full stop, full send operations into Gaza, take it over completely. Probably do some very rushed things there um, to take it over, so they could focus their efforts on fighting on their eastern front. But I don't know. I don't know. Now, what I am looking forward to some level, is Trump seeing if he can make some kind of way to get Russia and Ukraine to come to the table for peace. Do you find that likely?
I mean, Russia turned down the first offer. It depends on how much longer they're willing to go on at this point.
I mean, from what I'm understanding is that war kind of plays out in a classic Russian war story. They don't do the best in the beginning, and they kind of get their crap together, and they started doing good. Um,
Yeah, they've been able to move it more from a mobile, flowing battlefront that they really don't perform well in, honestly, given the state of their military, to one where it's pretty static and that they can just hunker down in.
yeah, and from my understanding, all the major battles of this war, Russia has won. Whether it's been Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Mariupol, they've won. Even in the Kursk offensive that the Ukrainians launched in like October, the
Say when you have like, yeah, Kursk, or what was the 2023 one, I believe? Their spring offensive was pretty successful. You have, it's outweighed in terms of Ukrainian wins, what they actually give in terms of
but I just wonder what the
value.
yes, and I just wondered though what the real objective of Russia is. I mean, it's pretty clear that Ukraine's real objective is to just defend Ukraine. It's not to expand territory, it's defend their
Maybe at
territory.
the longest shot reclaim some of it, which they're not going to do at this point.
Well, I imagine, also their idea might be if they win, they can join NATO is what they're fighting for. But Russia, it's clear they're not going to take Kiev. Um, they're not going to, cut the country in half. They're not going to do all these wild things that people are predicting. And part of me wonders if maybe their goal was to just, militarily weaken Ukraine by um, getting them bogged down in a war where, sure, Russia takes some hard punches, but at the end of the day, they can stand in the ring and take more hits than Ukraine can. Um, they weaken them, and more or less they make them not really. They make the Zelensky government not very popular. Get them ousted. Get a more neutral anti-war government in power, and basically get any kind of interest of them joining NATO removed. I think that's a
One other option that I have heard that I personally wouldn't mind is uh, the U.S. leaves NATO, Ukraine can join it. It's more of a European defense collective at that point. Um, in exchange, Ukraine gets to join, and there's a minimal territorial loss.
hmm. I do know too. Russia is fighting for the basically fighting for the independence of these those
Donbass,
like those
separatist
republics.
republic, Donetsk and Luhansk. So
Yes.
giving them that, officially recognizing they own Crimea, and trading the U.S. for Ukraine, and making Europe just have to deal with it.
Yeah, and and it seems like Russia's holding on to these spots that the little republics. It seems like they're holding on to them. I think was it Transnistria is one of them as well.
It's a breakaway province in Moldova that's not officially part of Russia, but they have a Russian garrison there because it's pretty much just a big weapons depot. They're also still run by the Communist Party, I think, which is interesting.
Interesting. They it just seems like that the maybe this war. I don't know. I'm not a sage. It it just boggles my mind what anybody's really getting out of it, and maybe that's why Trump wants to end it. Is he sees why is there no point? But my problem is I don't mind him going in as a third party, trying to sit down at the table and bring these two powers together. But I don't like any talk of no, we're trying to end this war because we have to appear strong against Russia and all this rather than the sake of, this is a bad, terrible war. You know, why don't we just, end this? Like when Roosevelt, basically, brought, discussion between the Russians and the Japanese. So why can't Trump do that and it be more of a, actual just peace, objective, not a, oh, we have to, appear mighty and strong by promoting peace around the world and stability.
Because he's a boomer at the end of the day, and they're consumed by the post-war view of things, where it's our job to ensure peace, democracy, and freedom to the whole world. When the whole world doesn't want it, it's hard to sell it to people who just have a fundamental cultural disinterest in it. I mean, the Russian people aren't particularly political. I mean, they have opinions on politics, but throughout history and to this day, they've just never really been into it. Eastern Europe's a lot of the same way. I mean, it is what it is to them. They don't care for the values we have, and that's fine in my opinion. They can have different values. They're on the other side of the planet. But we can't let that be because of reasons.
Yeah, I get what I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's there's a profit on our end to be made. And obviously I know what you're referencing. Our oceanic system, more or less requires us to always be involved, always be involved in European affairs, dictating things, since World War I. I mean, our biggest fear is a continental European superpower. And, that continental superpower, went from France under Napoleon to Germany under various leaders to now Russia. And even at one time, it was Russia too, even when it was Germany. Um, don't get me wrong on that. I mean, America, even as far back as the 1870s, were trying to do what they could to stifle Russian power. Through beating them in the grain industry, which occurred. That's why Russia was one of the more slower to modernize European nations. Is their agriculture was lagging behind thanks to America dominating the worldwide grain supply. But it's not a I don't know, it's not a good thing. Um it's not our business. I don't care if, VDV troopers want to parajump into Poland and, take Warsaw for, Tsar Putin. It's not my business. It's a problem if they want to, come and, go attack, like South Carolina, but it's not my problem when they're, doing it in a country that's not my own. And it shouldn't be anybody else's, business here unless your business is being a mercenary.
Yeah, and I mean, most people aren't mercenaries. Like,
Yeah. So it's just kind of, I don't
he
know.
that Trump did pause foreign aid except to Israel for 90 days. So that'll slow that down, I'm sure.
Well, the
Unless,
damage has already been done. I
oh,
mean,
damage is done, but you know, now it's just going to take one of them to not be able to fight at this point.
yeah.
And 90 days is a long time in a modern war, with Ukraine not getting any American aid.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they aren't don't I won't know if the Biden administration didn't, ensure that other European countries were getting some of this aid so that it could be sent to Ukraine, through other parties. I mean, I know, for
That we've
example,
already transferred it to. Yeah,
yes.
but that's
I mean,
also,
I know, for example, like the British government is giving, tons of money to Ukraine, tons of military equipment, and it's pretty much the same as American equipment. So, but I mean, like the damage is like I said, it's already done. I mean, sure, like, okay, for 90 days, they're not going to be getting any more M1 Abrams tanks or something. I don't think that matters as much as, oh, you're not going to get parts and supplies for those tanks.
yeah, and
Uh,
that's what, or even just like 5.56 ammunition and all that,
well,
the little stuff.
Well, they have plenty of 5.56
I'm
and
sure they do, but I'm
M16,
just giving an example, like
but
little things you need day to day.
things like MREs, training, missile, actual like what I'd call
Ordnance.
ordinances, probably javelins, drones, things like that are more of a impact than, or like tank parts would be more of an impact than, oh, like, sorry sir, you can't get ACOG sites and M16s and
The stuff you absolutely
and
need versus the stuff that
Bradleys for 90 days. Yeah, because I mean, most of those tanks, most of those vehicles, most of those things, they have a lifespan that can last over 90
minutes.
days. You know,
On the modern battlefield, though, I mean that's cut down
but
significantly.
things like food, things like water, first aid, medical stuff, that's stuff that there's just an infinite pool of that they need, and America's probably backing that stuff up more. Um, providing a surplus of that stuff, and now that's gone for 90 days. So I don't know. I really don't know.
That's
I think the Europeans can provide enough aid though to equal the Russians. I think America's probably provided enough aid that it wouldn't be noticeable till later in the year.
yeah, that's the thing. It's gonna drag out, in my opinion. I don't think we'll fund them anymore. Hopefully not. I think that's a pretty unpopular one generally, to where it would probably affect the midterms even more.
Yeah,
That's kind of the one thing where it's also with the H-1B, where it's like, okay, there's been a big enough public outcry to where they may not do it.
yeah, and I think America quit like stopping funding Ukraine. That's gonna that's probably gonna really hurt the Ukrainians. They're like in the end on a morale level too. But like I said, like, I don't think we'll start noticing. We won't start noticing things till like this fall, this spring. When the roads become muddy again. I mean, they're muddy over there. Probably are. Or they're probably frozen. But when it starts raining, it's muddy, and vehicles are breaking down, and people are cold. You know, there's no offensives going on. They're planning. They don't have the resources to plan for these offensives. Their artillery's running low on shells and sections. Um, that's when I think you'll really start noticing. But of course, the news will probably start spinning it earlier.
Yeah, it's about freezing in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, and I haven't heard anything, about any new offensives or any new salients or new plans. It just seems like it's a stalemate in the sense of
It's like 1917.
what's a dynamic battle from my understanding. They attack positions all the time, constant heavy fighting, heavy losses, but kind of inconsequential gains.
1917, Western Front,
Yeah.
where we have all these very new, very advanced things that are able to kill people in mass, and that we haven't developed proper countermeasures to, intersecting with just trench warfare. And I mean, you can also look at the Iran-Iraq war, for another more modern look at that, which is, in my opinion, maybe even more cruel because of the amount of chemical and biological weapons that were used,
Mhm.
where it was just essentially World War One in 1980s. We have World War One in 2025. And
Yeah.
then it's just evolved into, if we can hold this trench line and that trench line behind it, then you know what? It'll be over by Christmas, boys, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, and I watched a video the other day from they actually do a really good job. Props to these guys. But the like third mechanized brigade of the Ukrainian military has like a YouTube channel where they like record their operations and like show you them. I don't know how much they doctor them up, but it was kind of interesting to see how they like do. an attack on these trenches. And it's weird. We think of trench warfare like, oh, these fighting positions. Oh, they're like just these massive trenches out in the open. And instead, it seems like they're not really like. Don't think of them trenches like World War I. Think of them more like these. Yeah, I mean, think of trenches, but they're almost like zigzags, and
Yeah,
like they go in circles, and they're not like these like. It's not like the Western Front or whatever, where from the North Sea to like the Alps, and it's more like these like almost like entrenched like forts, and they have these little forests that
yeah, they're
overlook
built
these
on the
massive
tree
fields,
lines.
and they can't basically bomb these people out. They can't drone strike them out. The only way you can get them out is to deploy ground units to essentially run in there and gun them out, drive them out. And these fields have mines in front of them too. So it's like you can't just like run across
And
them.
constant artillery barrages.
Yes. So like the way they have to do it is they have to send minesweepers over the field to remove mines or blow mines up, detonate them, whatever, clear them, and then they have to basically mad rush with Bradleys, with M113s, with troop transports, with tanks supporting, and then basically like Omaha Beach, jump these guys out of a vehicle and have them just run and get prone out in the field and just fight their way into like a first section of a trench and literally, go like
I've
man by man through a trench for like a
It
whole
must have
day,
been
in and
about a
out.
year or two ago, but I saw a video, and the Ukrainians have been using their Marine brigades, naval infantry brigades, as trench clearing battalions at this point, uh, to go in since they were already kind of above, you know, regular status. They're kind of like a shock trooper brigade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Send them in to clear them out, man. I mean, this dude had his GoPro on, and you were just seeing it, man, and it was horrific.
Yeah, it's appalling some of the stuff I've seen, especially on Telegram. I mean, just and the thing too is like we think of like, oh, like these are like every video, every footage I've seen of like the Russian soldiers, none of them look like the Russian soldiers marching in the Moscow parades.
No, they're all Asiatics
And none of them seem like they're wearing uniforms.
or reservists.
It's like when they fight these people, it's like every Russian I've seen is like wearing looks like that they were didn't even know an attack was coming, and they just got on whatever they got on, and
Those are probably separatists in the Donbass more than anything.
it could be, but it's like at the same time too, when you're fighting like a constant static war.
You just kind
I
of
mean, you're not wearing your service uniform the whole time, but it's like it's kind of sad for me to think of that. Like some dudes out there probably sitting in his underwear, like asleep when they get attacked, and like the only thing he's gonna do is throw on a helmet and throw on his shoes and maybe like his
plate
plate
carrier.
carrier and grab a gun. And it's like that's how you have to fight in that. It's kind of sad.
I mean, you look at the videos from like fire bases of ours in Afghanistan and where the whole or Vietnam, and I mean, the whole purpose of them was to draw the enemy in, get them to attack outlying outposts and kill as many of them as you
I mean,
could.
have you not seen the video of like the guy in the Santa Claus outfit fighting in Afghanistan?
Yeah, seen that
Machine
one. I think that
gunner.
was from Restrepo, right?
I don't know where it was at. I just know that around Christmas I saw it and thought it's kind of cool.
I mean, when you look at some other historical, looks at like counterinsurgency or these mass like constantly ongoing fights like we had in Vietnam. Uh, During the worst days in Afghanistan, it was kind of like this, or Fallujah, where the uniform stuff. Sure, we keep it more prevalent even in the hardest of times, but it breaks down
Yeah, I imagine that's and when you get in the
when you're
field,
in it the whole time. You're doing what's right and what you found works for you on a day to day basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's like you go out in the cold and you go walk around all day in it. You wear 5 layers. At a certain point, all that most of that stuff's coming off because you've been walking around all day in the heat. And but I don't know, just the thought of some Russian dude like going out there to fight in his underwear and getting killed by some Ukrainian just it's kind of sad.
Whole thing's sad. What can you say? I mean, they've essentially ethnically cleansed the Digum Ukrainian generation. Multiple generations of Ukrainian men are gone.
Possibly so. We'll have to see when the war ends what the casualty count is. Well, no. Alrighty, well we've came up past our hour mark, and I think we're gonna have to wait and see more of what's gonna come up out of this, Willie.
I mean, yeah, it's too early to tell. There's some promising signs. There's always, with politics, stuff you got to look out for because the day you trust politician is the day you're losing your mind.
Yes.
Yes. You have to, as boomery as it sounds, and as much as it kind of looks like I'm saying what old Chris Rufo says, and I'm not, but part of what's made this country great, and I'd say Western civilization great, is not only that, the men at the top are doing right, it's that the men at the bottom, they respect the way things are, but you also got to, you know, make your voice heard, be better than where the rest of the world tells you you should. You should always strive to be at the next level. And we should expect that from the people above us, from the people we have to lead in life. You know, we're going to stay on it. We're going to keep creating uh, beauty in this world. And we're going to, make sure that what needs to be fought for, we keep fighting for.
Yes, I mean, I think I saw today where somebody was saying something about just because our guy got elected in the White House doesn't mean that you should give up the fight. So don't give up the fight. Don't give up the ghost yet, brothers.
And, I think that's going to be the tendency of a lot of people who just aren't as into it. It's just, hey, Trump's in. It won't be as crazy as the last 4 years. And I doubt it will be unless, you know, something with China kicks off, which I'm not sure that's going to be the case. But
I think it will be crazier, and I think we'll need every man on deck
I think that
do
to
their
the average
job.
person, it won't seem that way, though, is what I'm
Maybe,
getting at. That, when you're looking deep into it.
maybe so. Alrighty, well, I think we're gonna end it on there this time, Willie.
Alrighty. This is a good one, man.
You two stay warm out there, and y'all be safe. And you can find us on Twitter.
Got my handle in my name on the screen. So,
Yes, and when I upload the video, I'll try to get that stuff on there.
all right.
But
Sounds
other than
good. Yeah.
that,
You have a
y'all
good
have a
one.
good one. Yes, sir. Take care, all of y'all, and good night.